Now, we're going to start out today writing two different types of programs. The first is going to be a function. A function is essentially like any Excel function, right? We have the function if, or XLOOKUP, or sum. Those are all functions that we use within Excel. We can write our own function, which is often said as a user-defined function, and it allows us to program it and to do specifically what we want it to do. So it's going to operate in a single cell in Excel. You could copy it over many cells, but it's basically going to take whatever inputs the user gives it and then give back a value in that cell. The second type of program is going to be called a sub. This is a program that runs not when somebody types something into a cell, but when an action occurs. Either a user can say, click a button to run that program, or an action can happen in the spreadsheet that then triggers that program to run as well. Kind of like opening the workbook can cause another event to trigger. That's going to be a sub, and we're going to show you both of those in this video. So the first one we're going to do is a function. So if you start by typing function, that tells Excel that you're going to start a new program. And we're going to make the most basic program we can do, and it's going to be called Hello World. Notice that when I write the function name, I put a open and close parentheses behind it. Once we've done that and you hit enter, it's going to put that end function statement in there automatically. If, however, you've typed something wrong, the grammar isn't, or the syntax is not exactly correct, it might not do that. So for example, if I type function hello world, it doesn't know what to do because I didn't spell function correct. So this is kind of an early lesson that we have to be very careful about our spelling, about our syntax to do exactly what the computer is expecting. So let's delete that. And now we have our first function called hello world. A couple of things I want to point out right away. First, if you look very closely, you'll notice that option explicit, function, and end function are in a slightly blue tint. Right? It's a slightly blue font, and that's because it's a reserved word in Visual Basic. Right? We can't name a variable function, or we can't name anything else function because it has a very specific use in the programming language. So any blue text you see, those are going to be those reserved words that the language needs to operate. The other type of text you'll see black text. That's going to be kind of standard programming text. But another type of text is going to be a comment. So I type insert comment here. Notice to do a comment, you have to put that single parentheses out front or an apostrophe there to insert a comment. And importantly, this green text, and the reason it's green is it tells you that it's not going to be read by the computer. The computer is just going to take that and ignore it. And so really the only purpose is for us as programmers to kind of know what's going on in our code. So here, instead of insert comment, let me say something a little more informative. This is my first function. It returns the word hello. All right, so I'm saying something descriptive about what this program does. All right, now how do we get it to actually return the word hello? Well, let's look at that. So for any function, the last thing you need in that function is to return that name of the function equal to some value. So in this case, I'm going to make it equal to the word hello. Notice hello is in quotation marks. That's what tells the programming language that this is a word. All right, so very importantly, that and these two things exactly match up. Right? They have to be specified the same way. So now we have a very simple program. All that happens is if we type hello world in Excel, it's going to return the word hello to us. So let's see what that looks like. If we flip back over, let's pick one of our cells here and type hello world. Notice that since I wrote my user-defined function, it's now actually prompting me to finish that. I can just hit tab to finish it. There are no arguments yet. We left that blank. We say hello world, we hit enter, and it says hello right back to us. Now we do have to be very careful here. If you instead typed, again, hello world, we're not very careful here. We're not tracking exactly how it's spelled. Now what we're going to see is this name error. Most times when you see a name error, it's because you haven't typed something as Excel is expecting you to. Right? It doesn't match what you have in the code, and so Excel just doesn't recognize the name of that thing. That's why it's a name error. So in this case, we have a name error. That tells us to go back, check our typing, put our O in there to correct this. Now we have hello world working again. So we have our first function in our code. So if we go back to our Visual Basic now we can do our first sub. So if I type sub, that's the other type of program, and I'll say, call this sub hello world 2. So hello world 2 is because it has to be a different name. We can't have two programs with the same name, even if one is a sub and one is a function, in the same workbook. So we have to name it a little bit different. In this case, the sub, it's going to execute whenever somebody calls it, whenever somebody tells it to execute. And in this case, we need to work a little bit differently with how it responds, right? It's not going to put a value in a cell because it doesn't live in a specific cell. Instead, I'm going to show you a little bit of code called a message box. A message box is one of those little pop-ups that you get from the program. So in this case, we're going to make a pop-up that says, hello. All right, so we have our program, hello world. Let's add a comment. This is a program that pops up the word hello. We have our comment in there. Now let's go back to our spreadsheet and see how this works. Notice again, we can't type this in to a cell because it's a macro. Instead, we can go up here to our macros menu and we'll see that hello world 2 exists as well. So if we click run, now we get our little pop-up box that tells us hello. We say okay, and now that program has finished executing. We could also add in or insert a little button here. So let's add a button. We're going to assign it to the hello world 2 macro, and we can say this will be hello world 2 program. Let's make it a little bigger so we can see it. And now if we click this button, it also triggers that program to run and says hello. All right. So in this video, we've seen kind of our first function, our first sub. We've seen how comments are going to show up in green, reserved words in blue, and our normal programming in black. And we have kind of the two different types of functions. In the next videos, we'll show you a little bit more in-depth functions, get into a little bit more of the details and how all of this works.